is going on? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever, wherever, however you're watching this. This is our deeper dive here at Tuckasegee into this past Sunday's sermon. We call it Digging Deeper, a little midweek Bible study for you, a chance to dive a little bit deeper into this past Sunday's sermon. That's redundant, but here we are. I am your host, or this is my TED Talk. I am Pastor Jason. And so this past week, we were going through the denial of Peter in the Gospel of John. John chapter 12, verses 27. And there's a bigger thing at work here. There's the trial of Jesus going on. And there's really, we talked about how there's these two scenes that John keeps on going back and forth between. And I just noticed how much I talk with my hands. If you saw that intro, it's like it's always this. And so I'm sorry. But he goes back and forth between Jesus' confrontation with the high priest, the authorities there, and he's standing up to them, and this is the highest authority in the land. And then you kind of juxtapose that with this purposeful parallel, I said, with Peter, who's being accused by the lowest of the low, a girl, a young female servant, right? In their culture, the lowest of the low there. And just the two juxtaposition between the two. Jesus is standing for truth and justice and continuing to not be ashamed of who he is and why he's here. And Peter falls apart, right? Peter denies Jesus 3 times. Jesus had told him he was going to do this, and Peter's like, nah, all these are going to fall away, but I'm not going to. And he's like, nah, I'm telling you the truth, dude. Before the night is over with and before the rooster crows 3 times, you're going to deny me. And so that's kind of where we were. Peter goes through his denials, and then it talks about the rooster crows, and there after his 3rd denial. I read a commentary, and it was kind of neat. About said neat, but I don't know if you find it neat or not. But talked about the fact that, hey, we don't even know how many times Peter would have kept on denying him. But the rooster crows, and it shocks him back into it. He remembers what Jesus had said, and I love Luke's take on this, because I think it brings a lot of more depth even to this situation. Luke, and we're picking it up at Peter's 3rd denial. In Luke chapter 22, verse 60, he says, but Peter said, man, I do not know what you're talking about. And immediately, so he just denied him for the 3rd time. And immediately while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord and how he had said to him, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and he wept bitterly. And so I talked about this Sunday, but I want to do a little bit deeper dive into this aspect, because it gets to a bigger truth of the gospel, too, is that, when Peter locked eyes with Jesus, what comes to your mind? What do you think? There's big shadows there. What do you think he saw? What do you think he saw when he looked into Jesus' eyes? Anger or disappointment? And I'm like, no, because Jesus couldn't be mad or disappointed in him, because he told him, right? He said, you're going to deny me. He told him over and over, you're going to do this. And this is, it's all part of it, man. This is all part of the plan. This is all part of how it's going down. So he wasn't surprised. He wasn't angry. He wasn't disappointed. I believe that when Peter looked there into the eyes of Jesus, and what turned his heart in that moment was that he looked full on into the eyes, and he saw grace and he saw truth. John 1:14, John the apostle tells us, right, that Jesus was a man full of grace and full of truth. He was not grace and then some grace and some truth. It was 100% both. In the same way that he was 100% man and 100% God, he is grace and truth. Is both and, not either or. And so we start to get this understanding. A lot of times we separate one or the other out. We have a tendency to lean one way or the other. Sometimes we lean more towards truth. It's doctrine, it's theology, it's all these things. And then sometimes we lean more towards grace, like, oh, we have to, it's always just, we're forgiving this thing and we're doing this thing and just love everybody and hold everybody and hug everybody. And it's not either or in the gospel. It's actually both. And we begin to see what that looks like even in our own lives and our own understanding of this. If we have all grace without truth, that's just simply sentimentalism. Right? It supports and affirms us in our position, but it always keeps us in denial of our flaws. This is why so many people wind up, I don't know if American Idol's still a thing, but back in the day, American Idol, when you go to watch that and you'd spend the first couple of weeks just watching the train wrecks, you're like, why is this person singing? Who lied to this person and told them that they had talent that was there? And it's because, like, I didn't want to say. They want to be nice, to show some grace and do those things. And it's like, no, I mean, it leaves you lacking in truth of what really needs to be addressed there. And it keeps us from, we deny our flaws, and therefore we never address the problem. We just want to act like there's not a problem. It's like, oh, well, it's not hurting anybody else. Just go over there. It's like, nah, dude, somebody needs to tell them, because somebody in life is going to tell them they're going to be hurt and be like, so when Simon would get up there, going back to my American Idol analogy, when he's up there and he's like speaking truth, he's like, nah, man, you suck. They're like, but my grandmama said, it's like, grandmama should have told you the truth because you can't sing, right? Real grace has truth with it. It needs truth with it to where grace in and of itself allows for that forgiveness. The truth comes in there. But in the same way, we lean too much into truth, right? And if you have truth without grace, that's just harsh. And it informs us, but it informs us in such a way that we can't hear it. Again, sticking with my American Idol analogy. When Simon says something, it doesn't come across, right? It's like, no, you suck, and it's just there. And he tries to give you creative criticism, but it's just coming across like criticism. And you don't think this guy cares, so you're not listening to anything that he says. I always talk about it, the combination of both of these is this idea of barn door friends. I know ladies get this when it comes to, like, if you got lipstick on your teeth, your friends will be like, girl, you got some, get it off, right? Dudes would be like, well, hopefully, they'd be like, dude, you need to zip your barn door's open. And so that's why I say it's barn door friends. But there's grace and truth, and you have to have that love and that relationship to be able to have that conversation. And like I said, so we try to lean into one or the other more than the other, and we seem to surround ourselves with people who lean into more than the other. And oh, we're all truth people, and it's all this and it's all that. But there's no grace, or it's all like everybody's here and we're all doing these things, and I don't know why my voice goes like that, but it kind of one's and one's but it's not. It's those two things together, and that's what we see in the gospel: grace and truth. Right? There is mercy and there's forgiveness at the cross, but at the same time, we see that there is justice and condemnation. There's truth in the cross. It reveals my need for Christ. It reveals my sin in my life. That's what truth does. But the other side of that, there's grace and forgiveness and mercy. And to the extent we understand that that has been extended to us, both grace and truth, we are, and it is realized as we extend those same things to other people, including ourselves. And so as we get through this week, I want you to look at your life and look at the things that you do, and myself included, just introspectively looking and taking inventory and my grace and my truth. Where do I line up? And it's like, if you kind of put those characteristics and you do the thing, and you take that Venn diagram of grace and truth, where it overlaps is true godly love, right? And grace and truth are what it takes for real love. Why? Because real love is going to love you through your problems, but it's also going to tell you about those problems. And for us, our greatest problem is us. It is our sin. And the solution to that is the grace of God poured out to us and made available to us through Jesus Christ. And so that's it for you this week. That's our thing. I hope that you live as people of grace and truth. It's not separating them. It's not one more over the other. One's not a gateway to the other. It is both at the same time, living those things out. So we live out the love of God in grace and truth the same way that he has loved us. When you look at the eyes of Christ, when we have sinned and when we have fallen down, just like Peter, we look into those eyes and we're convicted about that, but we see not just the truth of our conviction of our sin, but we see the love and the grace there of the forgiveness that we have. And so through faith alone in Christ alone, we have that forgiveness of our sins and are made right, and we have the joy of our salvation. And it's from that joy that we do all that we do, that we will live out a life of hope, a life of truth, and a life of grace in all that we do and how we love others. So that is it. That's your assignment. Get in the pit and try to love somebody this week in grace and truth. Have a great one. Again, as always, if you're watching this on Wednesday, we have our midweek stuff going on. Why do we call it midweek? It's just here because it's the middle of the week, and we just kind of be catchy and cool like that. I know it's trendy and it'll go away. But anyway, Wednesday night services, we have, again, why the voice? I don't know. Men's and women's Bible studies. We have childcare available for those if you need it. Then our students meet up at the Life House, which is an awesome thing that's going on for our students. We got lots of things going up. If you have a rising fifth grader that's going into a rising sixth grader going into sixth grade, bring them out. It's that time. We had our level up day last Saturday, so it's all open for our rising sixth graders. Come on out and take part and enjoy it. If you're watching this on a day that's not a Wednesday, We're here every Sunday and every Wednesday. It doesn't change. Sundays at 11. And as always, if you have any questions, concerns, prayer requests, or anything like that, you can always shoot those to me at pastor@tuckasege, TUCKASEEGE.com. And or you can send messages here through YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, wherever these are. You can get in touch with us from there. All right, again, have a great day. I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Don't know why I say that, but I do it every time. So, bye.